Are you familiar with the plaintiff in this case, Johnny Depp?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
And how are you familiar with Mr. Depp?
I met and worked for Mr. Depp in 2014.
Half the chat is saying that's legit an offensive stereotype. The other half is saying he worked at Buckingham Palace, okay? And if he worked at Buckingham Palace, it is not an offensive stereotype. I fucking nailed it, okay?
Sure.
I missed that part
yes,
when you mentioned it.
At that point, I was working in a freelance, self-employed capacity. I was a lot
Incredible.
of my jobs came
Buckingham
through
Palace. It's
friends
not
of
even
friends,
Tuesday,
you know, personal
and we've got some British
recommendations,
representation
etc.
in the chat. Very
And,
nice.
I was
Very
asked
nice.
by a friend
Brilliant.
of a friend on
Brilliant.
this
Fucking
occasion would I
absolutely
be
mental.
available
Brilliant.
to go and manage a property where Mr. Depp was going to be staying for about a month in central London. Was I available? Would I be willing to do it? And I was available at that point, and so I said yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And just to make sure we're on the same page, what time frame are we talking about here?
That was August 2014.
Okay. And did you, in fact, end up working for Mr. Depp in that time frame?
I did, yes.
Now, just to clarify, were you employed by Mr. Depp?
No.
So who was your employer?
I was paid through a large hotel which was close by to the house, who also...
People who are asking, how do you get a job like this? It's rigorous, dude. The
provided
training
the
is
house
insane,
was working
and
with us
you
for
probably
the
will not be
month,
able
so I
to
was
make it
paid
through it. It's
through
fucking nuts.
Okay. Can you just generally explain to us what kind of work you were doing for Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard in this time frame?
Sure, yeah, it was the setup of the house, basically. Sorry. Setting up the house initially, which meant ahead of the principals arriving, which meant making sure all the linens were in place for the bedrooms. It was a sizable property, and just organizing everything ahead of their arrival. Once they arrived, it was the management of that property, the oversight of it, and the day-to-day running, some service, you know, like butler service, and managing the housekeeper day-to-day through that whole month.
And when you refer to the principals, who are you referring to?
How much training did you
Mr.
give your
Depp
house
and
manager?
Ms. Heard.
My house manager is my
Where
mom.
exactly were you working in London at this
So,
point? Just
you know,
kind of
30
describe
years
first the
of
house.
being my
This
mom.
house, this was in Mayfair. It was a large townhouse in an old building, but it was very contemporary inside.
Yes, very nice.
Modern,
And, well, actually, technically, my
furnished,
house manager is my brother,
very
so
modern sort of way.
28 years of being my brother.
Quite spacious, maybe 4 or 5 bedrooms, I think. A small indoor pool, a small gym.
Not even my mom, it's my
Quite
brother,
an open
Murat.
plan layout throughout the house.
So, I mean, I'll just tell you guys this much. His qualifications
how
are
long
masters in
For
engineering,
the month, essentially, yes.
being able to build satellites and spaceships. This
Can
is
you
very
tell us just
important.
generally what hours you would typically work in a day while you were working for them in London in this
You
time?
literally
Yeah,
enslaved your whole family.
approximately
That's
depended
awesome.
on what
That's
was
that's
going on,
great.
but I'm
I know you're
generally
joking, but like
7 or
people
8 in the
literally
morning
think
till
this, which is fucking psychotic.
7 or 8 in the evening, typically.
So
There
let's
was a
not
chef
make jokes
employed
like
as
that
well.
going forward, please.
Russell, brilliant chef. He tended to stay after I left in the evening. He would cook dinner, serve dinner, and thankfully cleaned up after dinner. So I could leave sort of early to mid-evening, usually most days. Unless we had guests, unless there were guests or other things going on.
During your time managing the house for Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard in 2014, did you have occasion to observe the interactions between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
How often?
Most daily, I would say. Pretty much most days through that period.
And did you yourself interact with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
Yes, also daily, I would say.
Which of them would you say, or did you see one of them more often than the other?
Ms. Heard was there. Mr. Depp was, the reason I think they rented the house was because Mr. Depp was working at a studio. I think it was Mordecai, the movie. So Ms. Heard was there at the house most of the days. Mr. Depp often went to work and came back later on in that evening, that day.
How would you generally describe the interactions that you observed between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
Initially, very sort of loving towards each other, nice couple. Mr. Depp was always a gentleman and keen to make sure Miss Heard was taken care of, anything she needed, often pour a glass of wine for her. Just nice, pleasant. How about your own interactions with the couple?
How did you get along with them both?
I think very well. They were really open to me, and I mean, my background's quite formal, so it was quite an informal setting. I was able to ask questions to either of them. Ms. Heard especially, it was really helpful to get information about what time they wanted dinner, basic stuff like that, or anything. It was good interaction all the time with the both of them.
Okay. Now you mentioned wine. Can you tell us to what extent did you observe either of them consume alcohol over the course of these 4 weeks?
Sure. When I started that job, or when I was taking that job on, I was told, I think by Mr. Depp's assistant, that he was. Oh, sorry.
Can you answer without telling what you were told?
I was made aware that Mr. Depp was.
Could you put your microphone on this mic?
Same objection. He's explaining what he was been told. Now he just said I was informed.
I don't think it's offered for the truth, Your Honor. I think it's just offered to explain his own behavior towards the couple.
No, can we approach?
Okay.
Dude, this is why lawyers are the worst. Debate lords, dude. Just straight up debate lording, okay? Yes,
All right,
lawyers
so
are
Mr.
debate
King,
perverts.
moving past the conversation, let's not touch on that.
Shut the fuck up, Slatty
But just
Matty.
in general, can you describe the alcohol consumption that you personally observed and what you personally witnessed?
Sure. I didn't see Mr. Depp consume any alcohol during that time in London. There was a large consignment of wine that had been delivered to the house at the start of the visit. Many cases that I had to find a place to store. And generally speaking, on a day-to-day, about 1 or 2 bottles of red wine were consumed per day. I think that's fair to say.
Did you ever observe Mr. Depp drink any of the wine?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever observe Ms. Heard drink any of the wine?
Yes, I did.
Uh-oh.
Regularly?
Daily.
No butler training
Now, I
gets you
think
prepared for
you
this?
already testified that
Yes,
you
it does. Dude, what are you talking about? Butler
observed
training is
interactions
literally
with
this,
Mr.
bro. What are
Depp
you
and Ms.
talking about?
Heard, and you generally found them to be friendly. Is that fair?
Very much so, yes.
Were there any exceptions to that?
Towards me?
I'll rephrase. Did you ever observe any arguments between the two?
Yes, I did.
I'll allow it. That's fine. Go ahead.
You can answer.
Oh, yes, I did, yeah.
Okay, and can you describe for us the arguments that you observed?
I can describe 2 of them, certainly. There were a few arguments on that during that month.
Well, let's just start with those 2.
Okay. The first one I remember was an evening. Actually, they were both the ones I recall and I was close to, were evenings. This first particular evening, the couple were due to go out for dinner, I guess. I know the car was waiting in the little courtyard there, ready for them to go, and security were waiting to take them. I was waiting to see them out into the car. I was at the foot of on the ground floor level, to wait to see them out, essentially. And the first thing I heard was Miss Heard shouting upstairs in the master suite where they were getting ready to leave. I heard her shout something, I don't recall what. You know, I was in the vicinity, I wasn't really there to listen. And I heard footsteps, loud footsteps, sort of going across. There's like a corridor, if you like, at the top of those stairs that went around the master suite. Loud footsteps, and then more footsteps following, more shouting. And that sort of went on for some time. I mean, I knew that what time they needed to leave. I don't recall what time that was, but I knew they were supposed to have left already. And it went on for a bit.
Do you recall how that first fight or argument resolved?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I know that they left eventually, albeit late. I don't know how it really resolved, because I sort of made myself busy, but not going too far away from the door to make sure I saw them out.
All right, and then what about the second argument that you mentioned?
Second one, I was pretty much in the same vicinity, the same room on the ground floor. Again, the couple were in the TV room, I think, which was off the main sitting room, early evening, and I was going about my early evening duties, replenishing drinks close by, lighting the fire, lighting candles, whatever it might have been. I was close enough to hear Miss Heard say, "Why did you take your hand away from me, Johnny? Don't you love me anymore?" Like, not in a playful way, I might add. And I think he replied, "Of course I do, don't be silly. You know, of course I do." And it kind of launched from that point. And at one point, Mr. Depp got up and went to the bathroom or went upstairs, and I was sort of scuttling around out of the way because I wasn't there listening. I was just there doing my stuff in and around them. Yeah, it was a strange, sort of banal way to start an argument, but...
How would you describe Miss Heard's tone when she said, "Why did you take your hand away, Johnny?"
Accusatory, spoiled teenage child.
I'm surprised he's not objecting to that.
Maybe, is that fair? Pretty, not playfully, let's put it that way, more angrily.
Over the course of the 4 weeks in August and September 2014, when you were working with Mr. Depp and Miss Heard in London,
Yes.
Did you ever observe any physical violence of any kind between the two of them?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever observe any injuries on either one of them?
No, neither of them.
Okay. After those 4 weeks, did you ever work for Mr. Depp or Miss Heard again?
I did, a couple of occasions. The following year was the first one, the following spring.
Okay, and where was that?
In Australia.
And what is it, was it unusual for you
Wait,
to be
this homie was
in
managing
Australia?
properties in Australia too? What the
In
fuck?
Australia maybe, but not unusual for me to travel for clients for my assignments to wherever
Bro,
it
this
was
guy's
needed.
this guy's got like a briefcase and shit. This guy's like an agent.
How exactly did it come about that you were in Australia with Mr. Depp and Miss Heard?
Towards the end of the London
Motherfuckers
visit,
at assignments, dude. That's
Mr.
crazy.
Depp had kindly said, thanks so much for looking after us. We really like you. Maybe if you're free next year and we can arrange it, we
Like
can make it
Agent
happen.
47.
Perhaps you'll be able to come to Australia with us. I've got to film Pirates 5. So I said, great, I'd love to. Obviously. I was freelance at the time, so it was going to be about 4 months' work, I think it was billed as. So I thought, yes, I wouldn't mind some of that. Thank you very much.
And where in Australia were you staying?
It was the Gold Coast. Yeah, but sort of Brisbane area. Brisbane was the main
Brisbane.
airport. So it's about an hour's drive south of Brisbane.
Very nice.
And do you recall when you arrived?
I arrived on February the 4th. I know I flew on that day.
Okay. How did your job responsibilities in Australia compare to your job responsibilities in London?
Much the same, just on a bigger scale. The house was larger. There was a bit more setup to do, but essentially the same oversight of the house, responsible for it during the whole gig.
And were you employed by Mr. Depp or Miss Heard?
No,
Who were you employed by?
Essentially by Disney, the production company affiliated with Disney, who were making the movie. I think their name was Herschel, was the production company.
Now, I think you said you arrived in Australia on February 4th, 2015? Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. How about Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard? When did they arrive?
The setup for us was about a few weeks. I think they arrived towards the end of February 2015.
And between your arrival and their arrival, what had you been doing?
Just setting up the house. I lived on site. There was a guest house on site.
I'm beginning to become more of a fan of Amber Heard the more I think about this Disney
setting up the
purchasing
house and just getting
Johnny
everything
Depp's
ready.
acting career, brother.
During that time.
Maybe
Then
I do
moved
believe
out
all
to
women
apartments
unconditionally
which we all
now.
had. A lot
I
of
bet
the
Johnny
crew,
Depp was doing
the
grooming.
chef had an apartment. We all had
He does.
apartments about a 30-minute
He
drive.
did portray
south
himself
of
quite
the
a
house.
flamboyant character on Disney. That was
So we're talking about
deliberate,
this house
I
in Australia.
suppose.
So can you kind of describe that property to us?
Right!
Yes, it was a large house on a few acres.
At
of
first,
land.
libtards used to say "believe all women"
a
means
three-story house,
don't
5
reflexively
bedrooms.
disbelieve all women, but it turns out it just
With,
means
2 or 3
unconditionally.
buildings within
me
the
now.
grounds as well. A good sized house, beautiful location.
I still
How many
a
entrances
racist
would you say
stream by
Many, I mean, many certainly on the lower ground level out to the garden.
Bogus
on
Champ
the
is
first or on
consistently the
main
worst
floor level,
chatter,
there was
dude.
Many entrances. I mean, every room in that house had a balcony.
My
at
favorite.
least.
My favorite dumbass.
Every room on the lower ground floor had a sliding door or a door out. The utility room, the garage, the gym, everything. Obviously, the front
We haven't
door.
heard much from Moldovan Mama Liga
Many.
because
On the main level,
remember what I've been
large
saying
glass
for the
sliding
past
doors out
2
to the
months
pool
now since
area,
Russia
gym,
invaded
gazebo, and
Ukraine. I keep saying like if I was Moldova, I'd be worried. Haven't heard from him in a while. I don't know why. I hope he's doing all right, considering the potential goals that Russia has in Ukraine. By the way, with respect to like building a fucking land bridge between Crimea and also potentially to Transnistria.
Couple, Sean and his wife Sandra, who worked for the owner of the house. They lived on site essentially all the time. They were there pretty much throughout. And their house was, a couple of 100 yards away from the main house. And yes, security were there also.
All right, sticking with the caretaker just briefly, about how long would you estimate it would take to walk from the main house to the caretaker's house?
Under 5 minutes. I mean, no more than 5 minutes.
Okay. And then you mentioned security. What was the security setup?
Security was set up by Jerry Judge. They were employed. They stayed in the grounds for the duration. They didn't come into the house. They had a little sort of shack round by the perimeter wall, where they would start their patrols from, walk around the grounds, around the exterior of the house at certain times of the day, write their reports, and go back and stay in their shack.
And how many security guards would be on site at any particular time?
I think one in the day and one in the night, so they did sort of 12 hours about, as I remember it.
But it was 24/7?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Do you know whether those were local employees or were they regularly employed?
I believe they were Australian, yes.
Okay. Now, I think you said you were not on the property 24/7, right? You had an apartment elsewhere?
Correct, yeah. I kept the same hours as I did in London, essentially. Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, not quite, but 7, 8 a.m. till evening, till everything was set up. And
Bro, when
I could
motherfuckers
leave.
start saying their job is an assignment, shit is like serious, okay?
When
That's
you were in
why they're
Australia,
talking to him.
to observe
And
Mr.
not
Depp and
you,
Ms.
random
Heard's
chatter,
interactions with
okay?
Mr. Depp.
Yes.
When
of
have you
course.
ever said your
how
job
would you
is an
describe that?
assignment? Oh, yes, I'm on an assignment.
Initially very good.
in New
Like
Zealand,
in
a
London,
mission.
Seemed very pleasant towards
crazy.
each other.
Did you observe any
When
arguments?
I was in the military? Exactly. He's literally a house
several.
manager and a butler, dude. That's
Can you
like,
tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, a similar pattern it seemed to.
someone said,
London
bro, I work at
arguments.
Burger King. That's what I mean. Like,
One in particular was very similar to the second one in London. Started in the TV room, funnily enough. Loud voices, and Mr. Depp leaving the room, shutting the door, going to another room to play his guitar or, to a bathroom, whatever. And Miss Heard closely following and opening the door or certainly rapping on the door. It seemed to continue.
Give us an estimate about how many arguments you think you observed in this time frame, approximately.
Several. I mean, we were there for several months, so certainly many more than in London.
Did you observe any alcohol consumption in Australia by either of them?
Yes, again, Ms. Heard, I was, again, part of my responsibilities was to provision the house and have everything set up for that. So I regularly brought red wine for Ms. Heard, which she consumed, the same amount as in London, I think.
And what amount is that?
Generally speaking, 1 or 2 bottles a day.
this is kind of important to also note
Did you ever
because
observe,
a lot of
Start
weirdos
any arguments
in the
with
chat or around on the internet have made it seem as though only Johnny Depp was the one who was like drinking a lot and abusive and all this other shit.
New question?
And it's like, it's obvious that isn't the case. It's not just Johnny Depp who was
do
drinking
you
a
remember
lot.
anything about
And that
Friday,
Amber
March
Heard
6th,
also
2015?
was, I mean, not to the same degree, most likely, as Johnny Depp, but Amber Heard definitely was also intoxicated throughout this experience as well,
End of the week.
to a certain degree. So I think that is like,
Nothing extraordinary about that day.
it's important to make note of that because everyone
work
kept,
that
I kept hearing the same
Okay.
idea over and over again that
Do you
like, oh
recall
no,
about what
like,
time you would have left
Amber Heard was
the
never,
house, on that date?
I remember
she
taking
didn't, it was
photo
just,
of
the main narrative, the
sunset
prevailing
over the
narrative
wall,
up until this
sunset
moment was just that
over
only
the
Johnny
creek.
Depp was like drinking and
took a
being
photo of that
abusive or
early
whatever.
evening, so 6:37, I would think I wouldn't have left much later than that.
Was Mr. Depp there when you left?
I don't think so. I think Mr. Depp was at the studio still on that day. I can't remember sort of seeing him to say goodbye. Have a good weekend.
How about Miss Heard? Do you recall if she was there when you left?
Yes, she was.
Did anything unusual happen that weekend?
Yeah, I would say something pretty unusual happened.
Can you tell us
It
about
also definitely makes it functionally impossible to fucking recover as a recovering alcoholic.
Foundation?
I mean, alcoholism is not something that just like goes away. It's something that you have to battle every day, right?
that between
Yes.
Mr. Depp and
Having your significant other constantly consistently drinking is also not great, and most
All right,
likely
turning to the following Sunday.
This one is how
makes
much
it
more do you
easier for you to
have?
fucking
Time for
relapse.
afternoon break if
I think we can. I have a little bit more, Your Honor, so I think maybe this would
Okay.
be a good time for a
All
break.
right, let's go ahead and take our afternoon 15-minute break, ladies and gentlemen. Again, do not talk to anybody about the case and don't do any outside research, okay? You're excused, thank you.
Bro, he leaking shit right now. Turn it up, dude. It doesn't matter. They're on a fucking. They're gonna come back to it. Okay. Please stop talking over important details, dude. They're on a 15-minute break. When it comes back, there will be important details. Okay. Shut the fuck up. You want me to run it back? Here, I'll run it back, dummies. Here you go. Okay. Here you go. Here.
Sort of 12 hours about, as I remember it.
But it was 24/7.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Do you know whether those were local employees or were they regularly employed?
I
with
believe
Mr. Depp?
they were Australian. Yes.
Okay. Now, I think you said you were not on the property 24/7, right? You had an apartment elsewhere?
Correct. Yeah, I kept the same hours as I did in London, essentially. Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, not quite, but 7. And Miss Heard closely following and opening the door or certainly rapping on the door. It seemed to continue.
Give us an estimate about how many arguments you think you observed in this time frame, approximately?
Several. I mean, we were there for several months, so certainly many more than in London.
Did you observe any alcohol consumption in Australia by either of them?
Yes, again, Ms. Heard, I was, again, part of my responsibilities was to provision the house and have everything set up for that. So I regularly brought red wine for Ms. Heard, which she consumed, the same amount as in London, I think.
And what amount is that?
Generally speaking, 1 or 2 bottles a day.
Okay. Did you ever observe Mr. Depp start any arguments with Ms. Heard?
No.
Oh, sorry, hold on, objection.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, could you put your mic, there we go.
Leading, objection leading.
I'll sustain this to leading if you want.
Okay, we can move on.
New question? Okay.
Do you remember anything about Friday, March 6th, 2015?
It was essentially a normal Friday, if you like. End of the week. Yay. Nothing extraordinary about that day.
Did you come into work that day?
Yes, yeah, I was there.
Okay. Do you recall about what time you would have left the house on that date?
I remember taking a photo of a beautiful sunset over the pool. The sun would set over the pool and the creek. I took a photo of that around early evening, so 6:37. I would think I wouldn't have left much later than that.
Was Mr. Depp there when you left?
I don't think so. I think Mr. Depp was at the studio still on that day. I can't remember sort of seeing him to say goodbye. Have a good weekend.
How about Ms. Heard? Do you recall if she was there when you left?
Yes, she was.
Okay. Did anything unusual happen that weekend?
There you go. This is the part that you wanted.
Yeah, I would say something pretty unusual happened.
There you go.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I can.
Foundation.
All right, foundation. You want to lay a foundation?
At some point, did you become aware that something had happened between
Yes.
Mr. Depp and Ms.
To the
Heard?
extent it calls for hearsay.
All right. I'll sustain that objection.
All right, turning to the following Sunday.
Ms. Williams, how much more do you have? Because it's time for our afternoon break. If
I think we can. I have a little bit more, Your Honor, so I think maybe this would be a good time for a break.
All right, let's go ahead and take our afternoon 15-minute break.
There you go, chat. This is it. This was it. He was going to talk about an unusual incident, and they literally fucking stopped him from saying that so that they could go on a 15-minute break. That's what I rewinded for, and we rewatched the 3 minutes for a lot of you who yelled, and that's precisely why you always have to fucking remember that I'm right, and I know how to fucking move a stream, and you might not be able to figure out how to move a stream in the same way. It's okay. All right? So that's just how it is. Now we have 15 minutes, and in between I'm going to talk about elongated muskrat purchasing, destroying any semblance of fucking free speech.
Jerry Judge was there.
That side is the right wing with their anti-CRT shit, with their anti-LGBT book burnings and all that. So let's get back to the court case now.
Who those people are?
Sure. Debbie Lloyd was a nurse. David Kipper was Dr. David Kipper. Ms. Heard was Ms. Heard, and Jerry Judge was head of security.
You're a delusional commie, lol, cope commies.
And when you arrived at the house,
There you go, get a
on
taste
Sunday,
of your medicine.
March 8th, 2015,
I am, you're right.
what did you do?
I just parked up and went into the house.
And did you observe anything when you went into the house?
Yeah, I mean, initially I walked into the front door. Initially I heard, rather than saw anything, I could hear pretty hysterical sobbing, crying, which sounded like Miss Heard to me. I heard Jerry Judge's voice. There's a few steps as you go up into the house, so you can't immediately see what's going on. But so I went up the steps. I could see then Miss Heard over on the right-hand side, over towards the TV room with Jerry Judge. David Kipper was in the kitchen area, which was pretty much directly ahead as you walk up those steps.
And were you able to visually see Miss Heard?
Yes,
And you were able to hear her as well?
absolutely.
How would you describe her demeanor?
Hysterical, probably the best way to describe it. Crying a lot and
Jerry Judge was Johnny Depp's bodyguard for nearly 20 years. He died in
just
2019.
crying uncontrollably, I think it's fair to say.
And how would you describe Jerry Judge's demeanor when he was speaking with her?
He was just keeping her calm, saying, "It's all right, love, it will be all right." You know, Jerry was good, like, he had a big heart, Jerry. He's a good guy. He was calm. Jerry was always calm. Well, mostly.
And what did you do next?
I saw they were engaged across away there, so I went into the main kitchen area, which, as I said, was just directly ahead of those main steps, and spoke to David Kipper.
And following that conversation, what did you do?
Well, he told me that Mr. Depp had.
Objection, hearsay.
All right.
Your Honor, it's, well, may we approach?
Okay.
Okay. The witness is a real palate cleanser, eh? This is Jude objects to everything. Jesus Christ. Dude, this is his fucking job. What do you mean? Of course he's gonna object to everything. Like that's like literally what his job is, to disrupt the process during the Johnny Depp's team trying to craft a deliberate narrative, carefully crafted deliberate narrative that, like, you know, Amber Heard was being fucking crazy and not
So
good.
You can answer the question. What did you
This
do
is their
next?
fucking job. Their job is to
So I
straight
spoke
up,
to David
you
Kipper,
know,
who was in the
prevent
kitchen
that.
area, seemingly rummaging through a bin. He said that Mr. Depp had sustained
He's a
an
debate
injury
pervert.
to his finger, one of his fingers, and he was looking for the fingertip that it said it had been severed.
Jesus Christ. Okay, this is the fingertip incident.
I said, well, shall I help you? You know, as one would. And he said, yeah, that would be a good idea. I left him in the kitchen. He said there was a lot more damage downstairs. So I went to, you know, we split up. He left him in the kitchen. I went downstairs to search.
At some point, was Mr. Depp's fingertip found?
Yes,
Who found it?
I did.
And where did you find it?
Downstairs in the bar area,
Jesus
the,
Christ, dude.
the games room bar area.
So, can you walk us through how you found it?
The fingertip
Yes,
got
so I walked
lobbed
down
off.
the stairs. I mean, there was a bit of damage down the steps. That a big chunk had been taken out of the marble staircase. On my way down, remnants of what looked like a plant pot or something around it smashed. Walking
Because of
down
a
into the
bottle.
bar, I could see the damage that Dr. Kipper had told me about. A broken ping pong table sort of collapsed onto the floor, and lots of glass and broken glass and cans strewn around the bar area.
And where exactly was the finger in the bar area?
This guy's a consummate professional.
Directly below the bar. I mean, the bar.
Straight up.
set
I mean,
up
my man's
like a
talking about
conventional
finding a
bar,
fingertip right now. Look at
stuck
the
out
way
from a wall,
unshakable.
and with a marble top. There's a big chunk out of that as
That's
well.
why
like
he's
the
on
staircase.
assignment and not like, you know,
Directly
just
at the end of
regular
the bar.
Andy over here.
There was a scrunched up piece of kitchen paper, if you like, tissue, with lots of blood around it, on it. So I thought that was probably a pretty good place to look. And it was within that scrunched
Good place
up piece
for the
of paper
fingertip.
on the
Very
tiled
good.
floor at the end of the bar, the base of the bar by one of the bar stools.
Was there any property damage around the finger?
Yes, a fair bit. On the floor around that area, there were puddles of what smelt like alcohol to me. Seemed like several drinking glasses, a couple of bottles. One was a Stolichnaya vodka bottle. And at the end of the bar, as I said, there was a big chunk out of the bar itself, the bar marble top. At the end of the bar, there was plaster damage right at the end of the bar on the wall. Behind the bar, smashed and cracked mirror. There's a blue mirror that stretched that whole span of behind the bar. Lots of cans again behind the bar on the floor. Broken window at the end of the bar, and more plastered work damage on the wall above the sink. It was sort of a kitchenette bar, if you like, as well.
You mentioned a bottle of vodka. Was the vodka bottle intact?
No, nothing was really intact. The top of it, the top of a bottle is like, it had a label on it, which is how I knew it was a Stolichnaya bottle. It had that sort of squiggly S, sort of yellow top. There was a large chunk of a bottle, which I guess was the rest of that, and lots of other broken glass around the area.
After you found the fingertip in the bar area, what did you do next?
Well, I gathered it up in that kitchen paper and sort of took it upstairs. I might have shouted up to David Kipper, I found it. I'm not sure, but I walked back upstairs to the kitchen and got a bag, little plastic bag, put the fingertip in there, set it on top of some ice in this plastic kitchen container, and pretty much handed it over to David Kipper and Jerry Judge, I think, at the time, who were keen to get it to the hospital quickly to see if it could be reattached.
Do you recall about what time you found Mr. Depp's finger in the bar area?
It was about an hour after I got there, so it would have been around 3:30, I would think, 3:20, 3:30.
Now, you've told us a little bit about the state the house was in when you arrived.
Yes.
Can you generally describe for us, and maybe go level by level through the house, what damage you observed?
Sure. Do you want me to start at the lower ground floor in that bar area? I mean, I've described a lot of that.
Sure, that's fine.
It was pretty extensive down there, all that broken glass, the blood. There are a lot of blood drips across that floor. It was a kind of cream-coloured tiled floor in that whole games area. As I said, the ping pong table was collapsed. Blood drips across the floor and around the bar. And the damage on the walls, as I said, the plaster work at the end of the bar, behind the bar, and the chunk out of the marble top. So on the ground, that was the predominant damage in that area, on that level. On the next floor, on the main floor where David Kipper was, in the kitchen itself, again, a few broken glasses and cans on the floor, soda cans behind the kitchen island, the chef's kitchen island, liquid sort of puddles. There was a sitting room with a couch on a cream-coloured couch, which had a fair amount of blood drips on the cushions, and that was obvious. The TV, which was directly in front of that wall-mounted TV, was cracked with, it seemed like remnants of a coffee cup embedded in some of it, and the rest was below, looked like coffee splattered behind and underneath the TV, and on the floor as well. Through there, we'd set up an art studio. So a lot of the art materials from that, paintbrushes, paint, various art materials were on the floor.
He's sleeping? What the fuck?
A lot of paint on the floor.
Or is he
Large
just like...
drips throughout that area as well, especially over there's a vast sort of wooden parquet floor. There was a lot of oil paint and blood drips up to the staircase. In one of the bedrooms, there were two bedrooms off of the main kitchen area. One of those bedrooms had blood drips on the duvet, and a lamp had seemingly been broken. The shade was removed. There were a couple of lampshades in the art studio area on the floor. That was about the extent of the damage. Going upstairs to the next level, there was a few blood smears on the wall and on the drips of the stairs going up. Again, a cream colored carpet, which is not ideal. And so that's the top floor was the master.
Why can we watch this live is a question that people keep asking. The reason why is because, and you know, I'm going to be brutally honest here. The reason why is because Johnny Depp wants this to be, Johnny Depp's legal team wants this to be out. You know, this is like a battle in the court of public opinion, okay? The defamation suit.
Across the master bedroom.
That's why.
Floor. Going into the master bathroom, there was a his and hers sink and a mirror.
And yeah, it's not a federal case, so
that had writing on each of them. Again, one of the bedrooms, or both of the bedrooms, I think, had blood on the duvet covers, and another lamp was broken. And Mr. Depp's guitar was in one of those bedrooms, a blood-stained guitar. His iPad was standing up on one of the beds in one of those bedrooms.
He's in chat trying to figure out why he was timed out. He just wants to inform his streamer about Elon buying Twitter. Yeah, that's what happened. People get so mad when they get like auto modded.
That was mine. That was mine. My responsibility. The house was essentially my responsibility.
So were you familiar with the damage generally throughout the house?
I got a pretty good idea as I walked around and saw it all, yes.
Did you observe any damaged phones?
No.
Did you observe any damage to a wall where a phone might have been ripped off the wall?
No.
Bleeding.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Maybe the next one. Okay.
Was there any artwork in this house? Decorating the house?
The owners had left their art in the house, yes. Mr. Depp and Miss Heard had done
Take
some
an hour
artwork
off
themselves.
Megaphonics.
Yes. But
There you go.
yes, there was some that came with the house, if you like.
Focusing just on the artwork that came with the house, did you observe any damage to any of that?
No, nothing that I needed to repair or replace. Certainly not. Thank goodness.
Is there any other damage that comes to mind?
Just a lot of blood, a lot of repairs. The floor, as I said, was quite heavily with blood and paint. Yeah.
And in terms of bodily fluids, it was just blood that you observed, no urine or anything else?
Yes,
All right,
absolutely.
I'll sustain
fine.
I'll strike the answer from the record.
So, no other damage. Does any other damage come to mind?
No.
Okay. Can we take a look at Defendant's Exhibit 375, which I believe is already in evidence?
Yes.
And can we publish this to the jury?
Okay.
Mr. King, are you familiar with the image that's on the screen in front of you?
Yes, that's one of the mirrors I was telling you about in the master bathroom.
And so, were you involved in cleaning any of this up?
I cleaned both of those mirrors at some point that evening, that night. Yes.
Were you able to tell what was used, or what substance what sort of the ink is that's used on the black writing there?
That was the same oil paint that was on the floor, on the parquet floor downstairs and various other places. It was the same oil paint.
All right. How about the red writing that says, call Carly Simon, she said it better, babe. Were you able to tell what was used to make that writing?
Lipstick, I
Action
believe.
Foundation. Objection
All,
foundation.
another thing that's
He's
like
testified that
really
he was
wild
being
is like this shit. You know what I mean?
It certainly seemed like lipstick to me, red lipstick. It was quite waxy. I remember taking that off. It
Okay,
seemed like lipstick.
there are many people in the chat saying the butler did this, and that is borderline bravophobia that I will not stand for.
Mr.
Just
King,
because
about
he's
how
British
long were you at the house
and has a lot of
on
composure
that
doesn't
Sunday?
mean that he is
Quite a
responsible
long
here.
time.
Okay, shut the fuck up, chat.
It actually went into the
That's too
early
much
hours of Monday
bravophobia.
morning, so
Anglophobia
at least
hurts.
I got there around 2 in the afternoon of Sunday. I don't think I left there until 2 or 3 o'clock the next morning of the 9th.
Over the course of the time that you were there that day, did you have any interactions with Miss Heard?
Yes, I certainly did.
Can you describe those for us, please?
Yes, not too much initially. She was very, as I said, quite hysterical and crying a lot, and Jerry Judge was taking care of her, keeping her calm. Later in the evening, it was suggested that Miss Heard go to a local hotel, to leave the house, go to a local hotel, which then became a suggestion that she go back to LA. And that's, I think, when I started interacting in terms of, at some point, I volunteered to travel with her to LA.
How did Miss Heard respond to the suggestion that she leave leave for Los Angeles?
She was resistant to both of those suggestions, very resistant. She really didn't want to go and said, I can't leave, I can't leave. You know, it'll be the end if I leave. Those sorts of things. And so it was just, these went over a few hours. Those negotiations, if you like. And eventually, Ms. Heard agreed that I would fly with her.
And did you, in fact, fly with her?
I did, on Monday the 9th.
Okay. Sticking with Sunday, when you were interacting with her on that Sunday, how close were you to her?
Very close, you know, like very close in front of her.
And do you recall observing any injuries on Miss Heard?
No, none whatsoever.
Did you notice anything unusual about her physically at all?
No, I mean, she was obviously crying a lot, she had red eyes, and but no, otherwise no.
Okay. So what happened the following day, that Monday, March 9th, I guess it would be, 2015?
Right, so, I mean, it was eventually agreed that I would fly with Miss Heard, so I had to at some point go back to my apartment, drive to my apartment to pick up my passport, which, funnily enough, I hadn't brought